So hello guys, what's up and welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's me, your girl Barrister Neze, and this is Nezeville. Hundreds of centuries ago, when the first set of missionaries sailed to Africa, they came bearing what they termed gifts of liberation. They called our traditional religion evil, satanic, and barbaric, and then they gave us theirs. They came with the Bible in one hand and then took away so much with the other hand. They preached that we should obey our masters, and then they made us docile and easy for colonization. They wore an outward appearance of pious saints, but history has shown us otherwise. History has recorded their many atrocities, and up until today, reports and records of these many atrocities have still not ceased. Lucas Richard is a missionary from Louisiana in the United States, an envoy of Creekside Church there in the USA. He left America all the way to Africa for missionary engagement. He came alongside his wife, Louise Ann, and they chose to carry out their missionary works in the Grain Coast of Liberia.
Hello everybody, this is Lucas and Lois Richard.
Lois and I are missionaries serving the Lord in Liberia and West Africa.
While in Liberia doing the Lord's work, Richard was very prominent and respected for preaching the gospel, baptizing sinners, and winning them to Christ.
Do you believe that Jesus died on the cross for your sins and rose from the dead? Then Hannah, based upon your testimony, we are going to baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
I can bet that back home, he must have been perceived as some kind of saint, a rare breed who had forsaken his comfort, devoting his whole life to humanity all the way in Africa. But was Lucas Richard the angel he was perceived to be? He was just as lustful and sinful as the people that he baptized, even maybe more sinful. Despite being married to Louise Ann and even having her there with him in Liberia, carrying out missionary duties, Richard began a heated sexual relationship with a young native girl called Jessica Lloyd. How he was able to carry on with this double life beats everyone. But what was sure was that on the one hand, Richard was this devoted, pious, charismatic, saintly man of God who was devoting his whole life to helping people in Liberia. And on the next breath, he had his groins burrowed in the ears of his young lover. Now, I am by no chance dissolving this young girl of blame or liability. She is as guilty as sin. She knew that this man was a man of God. She knew that this man was a married man, and yet she chose to date and have sex with him anyways. She had convinced herself and her mother that Richard's wife was okay with his affair. Like a white lady endorsed the adultery of her husband? How lame. In fact, in this interview that Jessica's mom had granted, she insinuated that her daughter had told her that Richard's wife was old and she was fine with her husband dating a younger girl and having children. Seriously, I have never heard anything further from common sense. So it is apparent that Jessica, totally blinded by greed, will sell any illusion to herself, any castle in the air to justify her wrongdoings. This she will dearly pay for. So this amorous relationship continued, getting more and more intense with every passing day. Prophet by day and having hot unprotected sex with another girl at night. They continued until somehow Jessica convinced Richard to marry her. Or could it be Richard that convinced Jessica to marry him? We do not know who did the convincing, but they eventually got married traditionally. They held a discreet traditional marriage ceremony and Jessica's bride price was paid. She must have been so elated to have been married to Richard. Little did she know that by virtue of the already subsisting statutory marriage existing between Richard and Louise Ann in the United States, what they did there was at best a circus. So she went ahead and got pregnant for Richard. When Jessica broke the news of her pregnancy to Richard, he did a fantastic job at feigning excitement. But in truth, he was beyond upset. What was his best kept secret was about to blow up, leaving evidences and footprints everywhere. He didn't want that. He wasn't ready for that. He thought about his reputation as a missionary and how it would impact on his profile. He thought about his wife, Louise Ann, and how he stood a chance of losing everything if she found out that he had gotten married and committed bigamy, and how she would divorce him and leave him out on a limb. It was as though the scales immediately fell off his eyes, and Jessica suddenly wasn't worth all the stress and all the risk. He didn't want a child with her, so he chose to act. So on this fateful day, he allegedly administered an injection on Jessica, and shortly after that injection, Jessica miscarried the pregnancy. He must have heaved a sigh of relief to have eliminated his child, but he wasn't done yet with his eliminating mission. On the 14th of September, Richard had driven to the residence of Jessica. He told her mom that he needed to see her and talk things through, and that he had some urgent situation he needed to handle back in America, so he wanted to just spend some quality time with her before he travels. And so he left with Jessica in his car, and her mother bidded them goodbye and went to church. But the next time Jessica's mother will set her eyes on her daughter, she will be half dead, gasping for breath, her head hanging loosely from her neck, her skull smashed into a dent. She will be fighting to survive, her life hanging on a thread. And so the big question is, what happened to Jessica Lloyd? Let us first hear Richard Lucas's account of what happened.
Explain exactly what happened on the scene. Explain exactly what happened and how you came here. Yeah, I'm listening to you. Go ahead.
Okay. She asked me to help her with $150 US,
Okay.
which I do monthly. I went there to her parents' house. I go and I give her the $150. She gives it to her mom. She asked me for milk, cornflakes, and a few other things. I carried her to Harbell supermarket. We bought cornflakes, we bought all of those things. Why would I be buying these things for someone who's going to hurt me? Two things. She's getting a motorbike to go back home, and I needed to check my back right tire because I've been having a problem with that tire. While she was waiting for motorbike, standing on the coal tire, I'm down there literally trying to jack up my thing. And I'm standing there doing this with the jack thing, and next thing I know, a motorbike comes out of nowhere and hits her, and she goes into a ditch, because right after this coal tar is like a little extra coal tar on the side of the coal tar. Right after that is just a big ditch.
Okay.
The motorbike hit her, she fell backwards and rolled into that ditch. I think she even fell backwards and hit the edge of the coal tar because she had blood coming. But she rolled backwards into there. At that point, I leave what I'm doing and I go to check on her and help her out and ask her if she's okay. I bring her up onto the coal tar. And at this point, this motorbike driver that just hit her is yelling out to other motorbikes, KK, whatever that's driving by, telling them that I hurt the girl, that I did something to the girl. I don't know how they were saying, but they were yelling it out, screaming it out. And so they're stopping, and then all these motorbike guys are stopping, and they're vexed at me. One of the guys took a big stick and started pounding. He came in front of the Land Cruiser, and he started pounding on the thing. I had $400 US in my pocket. And everything that I've heard about motorbike drivers in Liberia is that if something happens, you will always run. Especially if you're from our side, because they think they can get money from you.
So yes, according to Richard, he had picked her up on this fateful day and he intended taking her grocery shopping. He said that she had asked him for $150, which he obliged and gave to her. And that somewhere along the way, he had a flat tire and had to pull over to change it. According to Richard, as he changed the tire, a motorcycle, or was it a tricycle, came out of nowhere and hit Jessica, flinging her into a ditch. And before he could bat an eyelid, angry indigents had gathered him and tried to hurt him. They robbed him, took his wallet, smashed his car, threatened him, and that he was so lucky that the police came to his aid. I mean, even his church, the Creekside Church in the US, put out this message soliciting for mass prayers for him. It says, "Please pray for Creekside supported missionaries Lucas and Louis Richard. Lucas was attacked and robbed in Liberia today. His phone and money were stolen and their vehicle damaged." Inasmuch as we tried to believe Richard, it was pretty difficult to. First, the deep, sharp laceration on Jessica's neck was very inconsistent with the injuries that comes from a motorbike accident. Secondly, a bloodied knife was recovered from the arena. Thirdly, the noticeable disparity in his accounts was very clear and stuck out like a sore thumb. His total account of the incident was wholesomely incredible. There was only one way to find out the truth. Only one person who could give a clear and true picture of what had happened. And that person was Jessica. But very most unfortunately, she was in no shape at all to speak. Badly injured and fighting for her life, we all had to wait, hoping and praying that she recovers from her injuries and stay alive to tell the true story of what had happened on that fateful day. And luck was on our side, and has, of course. She survived her fatal wounds and has now given her own account of what transpired on the 14th of September 2023.
The only abortion as scary, I just flew behind boys they want to.
Well, clearly her laryngeal nerve has been cut, badly damaged, and maybe her vocal cords have also been paralyzed. So it is quite a struggle hearing her clearly. So let me assist explain Jessica's narration. According to Jessica, as soon as they left her house, Lucas had given her some medication, claiming that it was antibiotics to treat an infection. Who knows, maybe an infection that he gave her, or maybe an infection that should be averted after a miscarriage. On their way down the trip, Lucas made the first stop. He said that he wanted to urinate and then took a large, sharp knife along with him, claiming that he's scared of snakes, scared of animals, just in case he sees any by the bush side. He asked her to accompany him and she did, but she stood behind him while he did his thing in front. At some point, he suddenly pretended to have seen an animal and called upon her, "Jessica, come and see, come and see." She said that she was scared as well and told him that she cannot come forward, that he should come out, let them leave. So she didn't get any closer to him, and then they left and got into the vehicle and continued moving. After a short drive, he said he wanted to wee again and pulled over. And again, he told her to please come see him off, come cover him and watch for him. While she stood there, he noticed that there were some people around, passerbys moving around. So he could not actualize his objective, and then they got into the car and continued moving. While they drove, Lucas began narrating to her that back in America, they used to go to the cemeteries and, look at the graves of people, their names, and how long they lived, dates of birth to when they died, and it was fun. He suggested to her that they should go to a cemetery and do the same. But Jessica objected and told him that in Africa, we don't do that. We don't derive fun going to the cemeteries to look at graves of dead people. She objected. So that passed. And then again, finally, he told her that they had a flat tire and that they needed to change it. And so he pulled over, came down once again with this sharp, long knife, put it in his pocket, got the jack and all the metals and stuff used in changing tires. And then he told her to help him to loosen the tire. I'm just seated here, wondering why the lady should be the one changing the tires, while the guy would be the one standing. So while she loosened the tires, he pretended like there was dirt in her hair. He began trying to remove it, creating some alleyway, splitting her hair, pretending to take the dirt away. And when he had a clear open spot on her head, next thing she heard was a very loud bang. In that instant, she thought that the tire had busted or something. She had no idea that it was her skull that just got split by her lover. She fell down semi-conscious, jerking, blanking out, but still retaining little consciousness to be aware of her surroundings. She said that Richard started pulling her into the bush, and in her faint consciousness, she thought that he was trying to save her from whatever had happened. She couldn't feel anything, and then she saw him towering above her, coming in front of her, like sitting on top of her, and then he began slitting her throat. When she saw him over her, she still thought in her faint consciousness that he was trying to rescue her, he was trying to help her, he was trying to save her. And then she tried getting up and told him that she was fine. And that was when he pushed her to the ground, got the knife, and began slitting. Even as Pastor Richard slit the throat of his lover, she said that she still couldn't feel anything. Some say it's the adrenaline rush, some say it's the effect of the sedative and the numbing drug that he had earlier given her in the name of antibiotics. But whatever it was, she lay there not feeling anything while her lover proceeded slitting her throat like some poultry. While she laid there in what seemed, what would have been her last moments. But luck was on her side. In that instant, she faintly saw a guy running towards them with a stick on his hand. And boom! That guy hit Richard in the head with that stick. Richard got up fiercely and charged towards the guy, fighting him, injuring him, trying to kill him. He couldn't be stopped. He couldn't afford to let anyone ruin his plan. This was premeditated. He had thought and orchestrated this whole thing for a long time. His flight out of Liberia was only a few hours away. He had to get this done. It had to happen. But fate said no. Fate designed it to happen differently. And so the Good Samaritan, who happened to be a tricycle rider, who saw everything play out from a distance, began yelling and screaming for help. And before long, people began to gather. When Richard saw that the bubble had burst, he tried getting into his car, making his way to escape, but it was too late. He was apprehended by the teeming mob, almost beaten and lynched, until the police showed up in time to rescue him. He was taken into custody while Jessica was rushed to the hospital. Now we are faced with these two accounts, one from Richard and the other from Jessica. Totally contrastingly different stories. We have heard these two testimonies, and so I ask, which of these two appeal to your sense of logic and reasoning? Which of them do you believe? Do you believe Richard, with the story of Jessica being hit by some bike? Or do you believe Jessica when she says that her husband tried beheading her? Let me get all your thoughts down in the comment section. Before we close this video, it's important that I mention that Richard has now been taken to court. He was led in handcuffs to the Bushrod Island Magisterial Court, where he will be facing charges of aggravated assault and attempted murder. We hope this trial is free from all bias, all influence, and all prejudice. We hope that the court determines the whole truth, evaluates all the evidences on the weight of their strength, and justice is met. Africa is watching, and our eyes would be on this case. If there are any updates, significant, substantial updates, be sure that I will certainly bring it to your notice. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. We have come to the end of today's video. If you're new here or if you've been watching without subscribing, don't fail to hit the subscribe button, give this video a big thumbs up, turn on your bell notifications, drop your comments in the comment section, and stay glued because we have so much more coming your way. It's me, your girl, Barrister Neze, and this is Nezeville. I'll see you guys in my next one. For now, bye.
I also ask you to pray for us and our team in Liberia as the ministry continues with the Goal Literacy Program, the construction efforts, the local church. Be an advocate for the work that God is doing in Liberia, and that the Lord would use us on this side as well as our team in Liberia.